Hi, everybody. I want to model for you how to do these pages. This is your assignment while I'm not here today on Friday. And this is really good practice for analyzing food webs. So you can see in this food web, right, we have, looks to me like, oh, yeah, a marine food web. So it's an ocean one. I want you to make sure that you're aware that the arrow points to the consumer or the arrow points to the eater. So, like for instance, right here, the striped bass, the arrow is pointing to it. So that means that the striped bass eats the horseshoe crab and the horseshoe crab's eggs. Here is a sanderling, and because the arrow is pointing to the sanderling from the horseshoe crab, that means the sanderling also eats the horseshoe crabs, as well as the grackle. See, the arrow points to the consumer, and the horseshoe crabs are eaten by the grackle in addition to the loggerhead tuna. So basically, anything that you take out of this ecosystem is going to affect other things in this food web slash ecosystem. So the way this works is look right here. If this population increases, so if the striped bass increases, that means there will be a whole lot more striped bass, and the striped bass will be eating the horseshoe crabs, right? So since the horseshoe crabs are getting eaten, they would be here in the decrease. This population of horseshoe crabs will decrease because the striped bass are increasing. But that also means that anything that eats the horseshoe crabs would also be impacted, right? Because if you have too many striped bass, they'll be eating up all of the horseshoe crabs, and that means less for the loggerhead turtles, less for the sanderlings, and less for the grackles. So those guys also need to be in the decrease side. So loggerhead, sanderling, and the grackle are all going to decrease. Now, what might increase? Let's look at that. All right, so if I increase the striped bass, that means there will be fewer horseshoe crabs, but the horseshoe crabs eat the razor clams, right? So if there aren't as many horseshoe crabs eating the razor clams, then the razor clams will increase. So that's all you do. Let's try another one. If the plankton increases. Now remember, this is plankton, so it's the producer. Remember, that would probably even be better to call it phytoplankton. So if the plankton increases, nothing will decrease. Because remember how I said that the producers, if you mess with the producers, you mess with everything? But if you increase the plankton, everything's going to increase. And these populations will decrease. So, no, so instead of saying nothing, I guess I would say none. No populations will decrease, and all populations will increase. All right, let's try the next one. The gackle or grackle? Oh, it's grackle, not gackle. Let me put that in there. All right, the grackle population, if it increases, this should have the same effect as the horseshoe crab, right? Because if you have so many grackles, then you would have less horseshoe crabs, and that would impact everything that eats the horseshoe crabs. So essentially, the answer for this one would be the exact same thing as the answer for the striped bass. So I'm just going to copy and paste it. All right, and let's look at the loggerhead turtle. If you have more loggerhead turtles, then that means you would have less horseshoe crabs. And again, all of the other things are going to be impacted. So I guess I should consider here that the grackle shouldn't be in this list, right? And instead, what else should be in it? The striped bass. And then the same answers go here, right? Because the loggerhead turtle would eat up the horseshoe crabs, so the horseshoe crabs would go down. But that means I can take out the loggerhead and instead put in the grackle. And that's how you do it. You basically just have to think through each of the food webs and think about what happens if a population increases, which things will decrease, and which things will increase because of interfering with that food web. Good luck, guys, and work really hard on this. There are one, two, three, four, 10 pages of these. So this should keep you pretty busy. Take your time, think it through, spend some time talking with other people to help you out with it, but also don't use that time talking with other people to play around. Make sure you try to get all 10 pages done while I'm not here. All right, see you Monday.